This video is about what to do with the creeps in your DMs. Now, this might seem like an unlikely video. The algorithm for YouTube or for any of these sort of controlling social media platforms, they don't like us talking about a whole bunch of different things, and it doesn't really work in our favor. But for me, and what I express and what I share, it always comes down to the same components: philosophical components and spiritual components. Everything is attached to that, and everything is attached to human design as well, no matter what I'm looking at. If I'm talking about interior designs, if I'm talking about, you know, ways to approach the world, ways to live, ways to survive, about consciousness, about the soul, it's always spiritual and it's always philosophical. And this message is not going to be interesting to a lot of people. What to do with the creeps in your DMs. Not everybody's going to experience this, creeps in their DMs, but plenty of us do experience creeps in our DMs, and I want to talk about it. And of course, I'm going to link it to shadow work, depravity, moral corruption, amorality. Yeah, just to repeat, corruption, like law breaking, fiendish behavior, depraved behavior. It's going to exist. It exists. Like war exists, like death exists, like darkness exists, like sinister activity exists, as part of a duality, as part of the construct. It's not all love and light, and all of the love and light that we can conjure won't remove the darkness. And I think one of the greatest, I don't want to use the word challenges, but one of like the greatest gameplays, if you will, in this realm, in this construct, is how do we make acceptance? How do we accept and integrate the fiends, the rule breakers, the law breakers, the nasty ones, creeps in the DMs? How do we own that? And as a person, if you were, I'm not saying you are, but if anyone hearing this could really take a look in the mirror, can they really own creepy behavior, icky behavior? And do they come up with all of these excuses? Well, I was just really high. Well, I was just wasted. I made a mistake. And making sort of excuses for it without just saying, hey, yeah, I have a sinister aspect. I have a deprived aspect. I have a morally corrupt aspect. And like, I need somewhere for it to go. We need somewhere for it to go. And there are plenty of organized establishments where people can work through some of this. Kink clubs, or various other clubs. There are probably people who are funneling their morally corrupt behavior through avenues that they don't necessarily own, are morally corrupt. It's a very, very difficult thing to own, to talk to about yourself, to have something within you that is a less desirable trait. It's not something that on the outside people are seeking or wanting. No, people don't generally, you know, go around saying a goal for life is to be morally depraved. I mean, some are, and kind of good on you, because I feel like at least if you own it, this is where we get with shadow work, to acknowledge shadows. We call them shadows, and there is a sense or a perception maybe that shadows are negative, and we call them negative, and we have this idea that we need to move through shadows, and we do need to move through them, but it's not to say that we would never return to them. When we move through the shadow, we get to a side of this aspect which blossoms and blooms. It provides a gift, some kind of knowledge, of experience that we get through that lesson, and we go from the shadow into the gift and up to the city, to the full realization, which is like the highest illumination of this particular trait. And every shadow has one. Every shadow goes on a journey to the gift and to the city. But they only go there if you want to walk that process. If you can't acknowledge that shadow, then you can't get to that gift and you can't get to that city. It's blocked. Chakras blocked. Okay? But if you can learn to tap in, to come into awareness of what this shadow aspect is, how it plays out, how it shows up in the world, then we can migrate through those other phases. But we oscillate and we return back down to the shadow. So what do we do with that shadow aspect? Do we try and trap it and keep it quiet and hidden and shamed and not a known part of us? And that's not to say that like everybody always needs to know everything about you. Although I do have videos about this and thoughts about this. I'm trying not to digress. I could skip off into like when we are out of this realm and the soul returns to its kind of full essence, then there will be no secrets, there will be no barriers and no borders. Like, you'll know absolutely everything about me and I'll know everything about you, and it'll have the full breadth of experience, and it won't have wrong or right or morals attributed to them. It will just be. So winding that back, like an aspect of this realm here, what is so seemingly so far away from humans and from humanity, and what is coming into awareness with people when we talk about shadow work, coming into awareness is this like full ownership for who we are. But then it's not easy to really get to the bottom of and even articulate it to yourself. And you don't have to like perfect this. Anything that we kind of come to terms with, if we come to realization with, it's a journey, it's a process of evolving and unfolding. We don't necessarily like hit the nail on the head right away, right? It's like we're peeling back layers, we're taking another step down the pathway to say like, I think there's something here to identify, and how do I get to that? Like, how do I own that? How do I love myself despite, not even despite, but because of this trait? How does this trait give me something that I can love? And a really great practice, which if you want to go further, and you may already have heard Existential Kink. When I say heard, the audiobook, but you might have read it. Carolyn Elliott, she has wonderful, very practical practices in there around reversing like those shadow aspects or those things that we feel are less desirable, that we want to be sort of ashamed about, to write them out and to actually attach them to a benefit. And how does that serve you and how does that serve other people? And flip it and have those dark, depraved aspects attributed to something positive, and vice versa. Have your best traits that you think everybody on the outside, would give you props for, congratulations, or you're so amazing. Like, take those and have a look at why they would be negative or negatively impact someone, yourself and others. That practice is such an opening practice. But how do we deal with the creeps in our DMs? How do we encourage them to begin to own their depravity and to find ways to harness it, to leverage it, to respect it in and of itself, so that it doesn't destroy their lives? Because that is what it's doing at the end of the day. Unacknowledged shadows and unacknowledged depravity is poking out and pushing out in ways with where the person has limited control over the timing, the place and the time, like, that is appropriate to release this. And it pushes people away. It creates social isolation. It really gives people the ick, and they just don't want to deal with them. And that is where human design, for me, provides like this very objective, mechanical viewpoint of a person's blueprint. So you can talk to them and you can hear their experiences, and you can also put it into practical, I don't want to say, kind of saying application, but you can practically see, like, mechanically, logically, in their blueprint where it is, and in coordination with the rest of their particular blueprint, we can see a better way to use that depravity, to use that moral corruption. Like, how else can this show up and be of benefit, which is not just pushing people away by making inappropriate comments, inappropriately hounding, being confusing or conflicting, disrespectful. And disrespect is a big thing. People do not like it. They don't like it. And then here we have a conflict, and we're never gonna, remove all conflicts between people. And in fact, those conflicts are going to be part of the story forever. Conflicts and friction cause epiphanies. A creep in my DMs just last night, is compelling me to have this chat, have this talk, and to think about it, because my immediate reaction is like, ugh, I do not want to deal with this. I do not know what to say. I am annoyed. How dare. But then, I meditate on it. That's the process, is like not to be reactive, to pause, to make proper assessment, and to take a step back. And one of my sort of values is not to cancel. I'm anti-cancel culture. It's one of my core values, anti-cancel culture, because I know that people rush into things without proper assessment. I know that they give into temptations. That sense of depravity, especially when drugs and alcohol is involved, and throw in some social isolation. And bam, they'd like just make a couple of choices, and instead of reaching out and finding that physical connection, or finding finding what they need, finding what they want, they are met with more blocks and being a social outcast, being outcast socially, because their behavior is not, it's not, I don't want to use the word appropriate. It's not like, it doesn't matter if it's appropriate. People are gonna have actions, and they're gonna act in all sorts of ways. Appropriate, not appropriate. I don't think I was right, because if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. Who says it's appropriate? Not preferred, or I just guess more out of sync, out of flow, out of timing, out of place is more apt. Out of place. If it was, if that person, instead of falling into that temptation trap, acting deprived at the wrong place, they might pause, take a better assessment of the circumstance and the situation, and be able to add up, will this further isolate them? Will they really get what they want out of it? So no shame to the depraved behavior, no shame, but let's own it. Let's find a way to harness it, to leverage it, to love it, to bring it into a place where it's working for us, not working against us, and causing further outcast and social isolation. I talk about this from now it's burning. I've experienced social problems where I've done the wrong thing at the wrong time, said the wrong thing at the wrong time, acted in the wrong way, and I felt the consequences of that. And it's nothing that I couldn't come back from, but I make a point that I am particularly committed to growth. I'm particularly committed to looking at the bigger picture, the deeper picture, and I have been involved in a lot of shadow work. I have a certain type of power and a certain type of resilience which sees me through these circumstances, and I consider myself extremely lucky to have these tools and to have this natural disposition. And that's why I feel compelled to make these talks, to offer services in coaching, to become adept with human design, and to use all of my skills and experiences, perspectives, philosophies to support other people so that they don't have to I want to say suffer, but at the same time, like, people are gonna suffer, but you also, I just want to support people to weather the storm. I want to support people to move through that weak position into a stronger position by using their aspects to the fullest, without shame and without denial or rejection of self, and to be able to weather this society rejecting us for our behavior. So with that being said, I want to get going. This is really burning now, so have a good evening, day. See you next time. Bye.